Hello and welcome to another episode from Across the Table. My guest today is the commanding officer of the Royal Gibraltar Regiment, Lieutenant Colonel John Pitto. As is tradition, John, I've got my intro here ready for you. So, your career spans operational deployments, high-level planning and service at the very heart of Gibraltar's civic and military life. You commissioned from the Royal Military Academy Sandhurst in 2008. You later went on to complete the Infantry Platoon Commander's Battle Course and later deployed to Afghanistan from 2011 to 2012. From 2013 to 2015, you served as aide-de-camp to two governors of Gibraltar. More recently, from 2020 to 2022, you were involved with the plans and operations for British Forces Gibraltar, supporting critical responses during the COVID-19 pandemic and EU exit contingencies. Your service was recognized in 2022 when you were appointed a member of the Order of the British Empire in one of the late Queen Elizabeth II's final birthday honors. So John, thank you for joining me. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much for having me.
We'll go back to the beginning, as with everything. What made you want to join the military?
Well, I think those people who have listened to me in various interviews probably are aware that my call to service is something that's very deeply rooted in my family. I'm third generation. My grandfather, Miguel Gonzalez, served the regiment as a bombardier during World War II when the regiment was known as the Gibraltar Defence Force. And then my father, Freddie Pitto, served the regiment in the reserves as OCB company. So from a very young age, I was very much exposed to military life. And to be honest, I always saw a lot of individuals running around with the combats and the heavy packs. And I thought to myself, I want to be part of that. I want to be part of something a bit bigger. Unfortunately, it all went the way that I wanted it to go. And I joined this fantastic regiment where I've now culminated as the commanding officer. But it's been an absolute incredible ride. I met incredible people, made great brothers, yourself included, as we both served together many years ago. So as service goes and as jobs go, this is the best job that I've done.
I can concur there. So looking back at your time at Sandhurst, what lessons did you take from that course then? So,
as with everything that you do in the military, is all about personal growth and reflection. I think if I reflect now at what I learned from Sandhurst, there were very many lessons I took from that period of my life. It was a period where I went from becoming a civilian to becoming a soldier, and pretty much I had to go through the process like a baby learning to walk. It was the exact same process in becoming a soldier. So I learned a lot of important life skills, things that, is expected of a soldier to become second nature, how to be a leader, how to be able to take care of yourself. And although I went to university before I joined the military, there's certainly something very different from going through military training and sort of growing as a person in that respect. So I think the key takeaways for me was I learned to understand what it is to be a leader. Got in a good shape at the time. I'm 41 now, so probably not as fit as I was when I was back then. Humility, loyalty, integrity, all the key values that are instilled in you as a soldier. So all that were the important life lessons I learned during my time at Sandhurst.
So how is that different from the infantry platoon commander's battle course then? So what are the differences between the courses?
So I think, Sandhurst firmly trains and teaches individuals who have no experience in being a soldier in what it is to, one, be a soldier, but secondly, how to be a leader. What then the platoon commander's battle course does is it takes those raw skills that you've been trained in whilst at Sandhurst and focuses it on being an infantry platoon commander, i.e. what is expected of you when you're leading initially 30 soldiers, under your command, because that's the first appointment you get as a platoon commander. You're in charge of 30 people, and look at the tactics behind driving essentially an attack going forward, because that's what the infantry is all about. Is about finding, fixing, and defeating the enemy. And that's exactly what you get taught at Platoon Commander's Battle Course. It's a very grown-up course, and it's specific to just the infantry stream of the army. And
we said, because once you finish those courses, you come back to the regiment, and it's not like that's it, you're qualified. Your training really continues.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think, everybody knows this. When you get your driver's license, everybody then says you start learning when you're already given your license.
Exactly.
So it's exactly the same. When you join the battalion, you are fresh, you're new, you need to listen to the voices of experience, which is namely the commanders around you, the sergeants, the corporals, the lance corporals, and even the privates, because they have more experience than what I would have had at that point. So it's important as a leader to be able to capitalize on people's strengths and take the advice that the people with more experience have. And that, I think, is a sign of success as a junior leader. The ability to be able to listen, to be able to take the words of your subordinates, because there's a big responsibility day one, week one of you taking over as a platoon commander. And that ability to listen is so important. It's probably the most important attribute that an individual needs to master. And very quickly, you also need to appreciate the efforts of your soldiers, because it's all about them. If they are not on your side, then you are not an effective leader.
Yeah. So when you deployed to Afghanistan in 2011, 2012, what experiences then, which adds on to being a leader, do you take the most from there? Because now you're in a live theater situation.
Yes, it was. It was, it was very much firmly a baptism under fire. I was deployed to Helmand province, which at the time was probably one of the more contested areas of Afghanistan. I had the pleasure of serving both two battalions. I initially deployed or left Gibraltar in early 2011, January 2011. I bounced into Cyprus, where I was part of the Theatre Reserve Battalion with the 2nd Battalion, the Royal Anglian Regiment known as the Poachers. And I managed to get into theatre initially for just shy of a month. Unfortunately, at that point, they were starting to look at different plans and how that was going to take effect. And because we were part of the Theatre Reserve response based in Cyprus, it was an in and out affair. But then very quickly thereafter, I then bounced on another deployment and ended up doing another 5 months in Afghanistan with the 1st Battalion and Princes of Wales Royal Regiment. Both battalions are incredible battalions. I went into theatre thinking that I was going to do an ops support job, supporting the ops officer within the regiment I was serving, 1 PWRR. But then very quickly I was given the pleasure of being able to have ground command, and that meant me going into the front lines of Afghanistan, supporting the operations at the time, which was very much about starting the process to hand back Afghanistan to the Afghans. So very much hearts and minds, but still firmly in the thick of it. And I was employed as a patrol commander with the aim of developing the Afghan National Civil Order Police, the ANCOP. I met some incredible soldiers within the ANCOP organization, and I was patrolling on the 611, which was one of the most heavily contested areas at the time. So in terms of life lessons, you had to grow up very quickly there. And, every day was different, and you were never safe. So it was not all about just ensuring that I could come back to my family, but also that I could ensure that I could safely bring back those individuals I was responsible for. So it was a huge responsibility, but one that I'm extremely grateful to have been given the opportunity to be part of, because it helped me grow as a person, it helped me grow as a commander, and certainly as an officer.
So just for the viewers out there that don't know the space, how many people were you then in charge of?
In Afghanistan?
Yeah.
So in
the
Afghanistan,
front line.
in Afghanistan, I was in charge of what's known as a multiple. So it's just shy of a platoon. A platoon is 30 people. I was in charge of 20 people, but doing some very interesting things. I think out of respect of what we did there, unfortunately I can't cover more detail, but certainly you being a war veteran yourself from the Iraq conflict, you can understand that sometimes there's some things that is kept very personal to the soldier. But yes, I was given that responsibility of being in charge of 20, so shy of a platoon, from different trades, but mainly within the infantry. Had heavy machine gunners, had RADOPs or radio operators, as we most conveniently know them. I had engineers, and basically everybody brought something to the party. And there were great individuals, too many to name. I didn't only operate solely with the ANCOP, so the Afghan National Civil Order Police, as I mentioned earlier, and the members from 1PWRR. I also operated with the United States Marine Corps and with other call signs on the ground. So it was a very interesting time.
Yeah, but it's just because I wanted to frame and highlight, because just for the viewers out there, once again, that don't know, they always see it in the movies. You always see this crack unit. There's always four men. They're dotting about, but they never highlight or show the upper echelon, so the commanding officer or the platoon commander. Which shows that what responsibilities they have of 30 people. So it's 30 people, but all the bullshit that comes with 30 people.
100%. Yeah.
For the good and for the bad. So it's just the way of highlighting that in that theatre, in that scenario, all that you have to encompass in your mind as well.
Absolutely.
As well.
Yeah, and I think, in that context, there is, I was 27 at the time, 27, and all of a sudden I was in charge of people older than me who had been serving for far longer than I have been serving, from different cap badges, not from the regiment that I'm part of, and trying to bring all those different characters together. It is a challenge, but one which is very fulfilling, because you get to see how people come together very quickly to be able to achieve a common goal.
And it's not a 9 to 5.
It's not certainly a 9 to 5.
24 hours.
24 hours. 24 hours, 365 days a year. We get paid to be prepared to serve. And as a leader, the motto Sanders still rings true to me, which is serve to lead. A platoon commander, an officer, what are they expected to do? I'm sure we'll cover various different examples as we go through the interview, but initially, what I would say is that you are the person who has that right bestowed on them to lead soldiers in the harshest of conditions. And unfortunately, you're also the individual who is burdened with having to make very difficult decisions, which could ultimately mean requesting someone to make the ultimate sacrifice. And by that I mean be prepared to put their life on the line. Afghanistan, for me, certainly there were plenty of experiences where that was certainly the case. I was brought up in Gibraltar, where it's fairly safe. I come from a modest background, and all of a sudden I was in the thick of it. And although the first years of Afghanistan was probably those years where you could see more heavier conflicts, certainly those people that can appreciate the Herrick conflict, the Afghanistan conflict at the time, will know that Helmand was no walk in the park. And it certainly wasn't the case for me. So,
finished in Afghanistan, come back. Later on, you served as the ADC, which is a unique role as well. It's another element of being a leader. So what did you learn then, the flip side of the diplomacy, protocol and leadership, which you didn't expect going into that role?
That's a very good question. It's a very different field in respects to what is expected of you as a soldier. All of a sudden, you're going from being dressed in this kit, pretty much on a daily basis, to adorning a tie.
Dirty, smelly.
Long hours, but in a different way. Long hours in a different way. and you know, you're pretty much the principal advisor to the governor of Gibraltar, which in itself is a great honor as well. I had the honor of serving two different governors, Vice Admiral Sir Adrian Johns and Lieutenant General Sir James Dutton, both of them in the Navy, one being a Royal Marine, the other being a naval officer. So I wasn't only the ADC to the governor, but I was also the ADC to officers in the Navy. So for the first time, I was getting exposure working with a different stream of the Ministry of Defence. And then to add on to that, I was also working for the FCDO, so the Foreign and Commonwealth Office. So very quickly, I had to start learning different skills. And again, like I said, I think the beauty, and you covered it very eloquently at the very beginning of this podcast, the fact that no day is the same. You know, every day is different. You come in and you don't know what to expect. As the ADC to the governor, he was very much in that space. Did 3 years as ADC, so a long time, but 3 good years working in the convent and meeting and working with not only government ministers from Gibraltar, but also having that exposure to ministers from the United Kingdom as well. So it proved to be a very interesting time, and one that I also, again, you know, I think throughout all my experiences in the military, I can't say I've ever had a bad experience. That for me was a good time because my wife and I had our first child whilst I was the ADC, Sophie. So it was a good time for me because it sort of took me away from the hustle and bustle of being in green and going away constantly on deployments, on short-term training teams, to having a little bit more of a more static work routine in Gibraltar, but nonetheless it was still very busy. Yeah. But it gave me the opportunity to spend some time with my daughter when she was born.
And then did they expose you to the importance of Gibraltar in the international stage, its role? Just being alongside the governor, having these meetings, meeting people, obviously. What did that exposure give you then?
I think what it gave me is that as a regiment, you know, there is certainly many challenges that we face, like any other regiment. But I think that with the regiment, with the Royal Gibraltar Regiment, there's a few unique issues and challenges which are driven by the Governor's Office as the Commander-in-Chief. It gave me that exposure to be able to look and appreciate these issues which the Governor leads with, and be part of that. So be part of something bigger at the policy, so if you want to consider it political level, and have a lever of influence there, which is very unique and very special as a young captain. So, you know, it certainly did open my eyes at the political beast that runs next to the military
aspect
of things. Yes, so it's different, but I think worthwhile, and certainly has supported my growth as an officer, especially in what we know as staff work, staffing environment, and being able to put together briefing papers, etc.
So when you moved on from there, so in the 2020 and 2022, you were the lead plans and operations officer during both the COVID and the EU exit contingency. So that nicely led on from your exposure from the governor. But what was the most complex challenge you faced during that period?
Well,
two difficult ones.
two very difficult scenarios that we had to work through. That there's still ongoing work on, but. Certainly, if we peel it back, so I took over that role after I completed my majors course, if you'd like to consider it. So ICSCL, Intermediate Commander Staff Course, land in Shrivenham. I came back, and for a period of time, I was the officer commanding of firstly headquarter company, which is the support company for the regiment, and then I very quickly bounced on to be the OC of officer commanding of G company. And I was on exercise in the UK. I was not due to take over the role of principal plans and operations officer in British Forces Gibraltar until summer of 2022. 2020, you know, COVID.
2020, yeah.
Yeah.
Roughly
Yeah.
Well, that's when you took over the role of lead plan. So
Yeah.
around that time.
So yes, so I was meant to take over the role of principal plans and operations officer in summer of 2020. However, COVID hit the world, and very quickly I was on an exercise in Thetford in the UK in the training area with camp cream on, with the soldiers. Enjoying my time in command as the officer commanding of the rifle company, and very quickly we were asked that we had to return back to Gibraltar. So we recovered to Gibraltar, and I was received by the CBF at the time, retired as Rear Admiral, but Commodore at the time, Commodore Tim Henry, who very quickly said, say farewell to your company, hand over to Major Jose Garcia White, who I know is a friend of yours as well.
Yeah.
It was very much a high five handover, and then I was very much thrown into the thick of it at number 6 as the military liaison officer initially, supporting Gibraltar through the COVID pandemic. Mm-hmm. I was very blessed because I was working with a former commanding officer, Colonel Ivo Lopez, which was great to work with him once again. I was his adjutant, so I was also the regimental adjutant once upon a time. And being able to work with Colonel Ivo again was great. As we know, he's a very diligent worker, very much in the thick of it. And, you know, it was an absolute pleasure to be under his, you could say, command again, but in a different guise.
There was no sir anymore.
No, there wasn't any sir anymore. There was just good coffees, though. Yeah. Good coffees in his anteroom, and you know, it was always great to be able to sit with someone who becomes a big brother role model for you, and that's who Ivo was. So you know, we were in the thick of it, coming up with plans, working with the government. Was completely supported by the chief minister. At the time, Minister Sacramento, who was the minister responsible for civil contingencies, and it was really refreshing. But all of a sudden, everyone's looking at you on the table, and you're the one that needs to come up with a plan. And it was for the first time that I actually said, oh, it's me. Like, now it's on me, this. Yeah. So it became very real. I felt like I was back in Afghan, actually, because I was given that independent ability to come up with plans that were being supported. Mm-hmm. Like in every establishment, you know, you pass through a process and you come back with 101 comments and things that needs to change, and things or recommendations from superiors, managers, leaders saying, right, we can top and tail this, but not with COVID, because no one knew what to expect with COVID.
But that's what I mentioned when my interview with the chief minister. It's not like there was a book somewhere that you could go back.
It wasn't.
Look at the plan. That's what they did. Let's do this. There wasn't any of that. So what I wanted to know was on the military side, because I know the military, we all have SOPs for everything.
Yeah.
But this must have been the case where there was nothing. Yes, there must have been a certain type for outbreaks, but not specifically COVID. So what was the regiment then asked to do? Which we don't have to get really into detail, but what was the main role that they were asking you to support them? I
think the important thing to understand is that anyone who has experience of working in the military develops a very resilient mind. Mm-hmm. And it's all about, you know, if you can't come up with an answer, you improvise, adapt, and you overcome. And COVID was very much that scenario. It was, you had to go with the issue. Every day was a new day. Every day
information coming in.
Absolutely. Every day you learn something new. But the beauty about being in this uniform and having this exposure of being in the military is that it gives you the mechanisms by which you can look at plans logically and set them out through different question sets that ultimately can give you or support you in achieving an answer that best supports the effect that needs to be delivered. In the military, we know that as of the 7 questions, so it's a bit of an estimate, but certainly you can, you know, be given the problem, what have I been told to do and why, you know, what action and effect do I need to have in each of the issues that I'm dealing with, and then sort of apply that logic throughout. And it was very much, you know, back to basics with respect to that. It was, right, we've got this problem. I've been asked to lean in and support the government with military personnel.
Equipment.
Even, you know, looking at how we could employ the members from the Princess Royal Medical Centre to be able to come in and complement doctors, because we've got, you know, doctors on ROC, which are military doctors, and using their experience in sort of setting up a Role 2 field hospital, which is ultimately what happened up in the Nightingale facility that was set up in the Europa Stadium. The military cannot receive the credit for that, because again, those were plans driven by Ivo Lopez and the civil contingency team. But certainly, you know, we supported in providing manpower to hump and dump, move as much as we could, and be prepared to just be there for whatever is expected from us, and apply that principle of, you know, if we need to be the people that need to make the most difficult decisions or be tasked with the most difficult requests, then we need to be prepared to support whatever's asked from us. So, you know, during COVID, it was very much that space, working hand in glove with the government of Gibraltar, coming up with ideas that we thought would be the best ideas. I was blessed to work with, you know, great people from, you know, not only Ivo Lopez, but certainly technical services, the environment, the likes of, you know, Lisa Mercedio Torres. She was great. There was a lot of good people doing a lot of important and good work. And that, you know, is something that will stay with me for the rest of my life. And it was great to be under the leadership of the Chief Minister as well, and have that exposure at that political level as well. It was really, really good. So great experiences all around. So yeah, interesting times during COVID, but luckily we managed to come out the other side of it. And I think Gibraltar has come out stronger as a result. Like everything, lessons were identified on if we unfortunately ever do have to deal with something similar. Well, I think that Gibraltar is better placed now to be able to support those type of incidents.
Now, you said a lot of lessons were learnt, as with everything that happens, but especially that one, because the information changes. So you might have had a plan in place, the government have a plan in place, but then the next day, no, this is the thing. The next day, no, it's this now, and you're like all the time, like, have to constantly evolve, change. Yeah. How do you do that as a leader then when you're sitting at those tables? How is that then? So you've put a plan in place, we're doing this, and then also the next day, no, now it's this. How do you, a leader, do you then think about that and make the decision?
This is not going to get lost on you. No plan survives first contact.
Yeah, exactly.
So essentially, that's the code by which we in the military live. And you can either be that person that gets frustrated by it or just accepts it. And the fact that my experiences in my military career have firmly put me in that space where not any day is the same, and you're going to have 101 different variables that are going to come in that you're going to need to work through, and you know, you just, like I said,
being honest, I think, as well, which is,
I think so, because absolutely
what I think is lost sometimes is the honesty, just to tell them no.
But
why? If you give me this, then we can do it, but at the moment I can't do that unless we have this lesson.
100%.
So I think it's the honesty part, and that's what I think the army is really good at. That we will tell the boss, no, we can't do it, respectfully, but we can't do it because of this, and this.
Absolutely.
And I think that's the information that the leaders do need as well. It can't be all the time, and then it's like, what happened?
Open passage of communication and transparency are key for success, and that's clear. You know, I think that we have this ability as soldiers, and I say we because I value that you were once a soldier, is, you know, placing truth to power, and not being scared or concerned to be able to raise your concerns as long as you can back it up. And I think that that's the important thing, having that ability to be able to challenge. It's like we say in the military now, it's a safe challenge culture, and it has to be a safe challenge culture. It's all more about a transformative military than a transactional military. And you know, certainly if you've got the statement of evidence, you've got your concerns, you've raised your risks.
If you can back it up,
absolutely,
then it's fantastic, I think.
So yeah, and I think it is a difficult skill, and sometimes my exposure has been that people in the military are better trained in that respect in comparison possibly to people coming in from the civilian sector. But, you know, nonetheless, I think as a person, I'm generally that type of person that I always take into consideration what the people around me are saying, and I value people's opinions.
Yeah. So moved on. This is a more personal touch for you, but it is equally as important. You were awarded the MBE, and it was one of the final honours from Queen Elizabeth II.
Yeah.
To you personally and professionally, what did that mean then? With the added hindsight that ultimately she passed away, so it was special, I think.
It was outstanding to be recognised by the late Queen. It really was a shock at the time. I'm still humbled by the fact that I was recognized in the last of her birthday honors. I really did not expect it, because I do not do things with the intent of being recompensed. I do things because I try and be a good person and live by a code of good values, morals and standings. So for me, it was an absolute honor to be recognized and be made a member of the most excellent order of the British Empire. I never thought that I would have been recognized in such a way through my career. So being able to be recognized with an MBE before taking over command, which ordinarily people try and are recognized when they come to the last tour of duty within the regiment, which is commanding officer. I think there's only me and Colonel John Perez who received an MBE before taking over command of the regiment. Was an absolute great honor, not only for me, but a great honor and recognition for my family.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, my wife Natalia has been my supporter since day one, week one of joining the military. She's been back in my corner. She's had many years where she's been by herself. Maybe that's a blessing, but you'd have to ask her. but certainly, you know, it was recognition for her efforts in supporting my career, my kids, of which now I have 3. You know, Sophie I mentioned earlier, but my son Jack and my daughter Alexia. You know, Jack was born 2 months after he was born, 3 months after he was born. I left Gibraltar for a year. And he used to call the phone daddy, because that's what he knew as being his dad, the phone. So there's big sacrifices that we make in the military. I wouldn't change anything because I'm a better person for it. And I think, you know, I'm like I said, I'm extremely grateful for the support I've had from my family. But it was absolutely outstanding. And for me, it was also an important moment, because being recognized with an MBE also, I think, plays dividends to the excellent support and upbringing I've had from my father Freddie and my mother Michelle, who I need to incorporate here into this, because
they've instilled in you,
you know, thanks to their commitment and their devotion and their love, you know, I am the person I am today. So it's an honor which I took, not only because of the work I've done, but because of the support and recognition that my family deserve as well. So I've been very grateful for that. Like I said, when I first was given the news, it was like a dream. I didn't expect it at all. But you know, I'm grateful for it, and I continue to work hard, and I think what that demonstrates is just an individual who is driven, passionate, loyal, and hardworking, not only to the army, but to its regiment and its people.
So as CEO now, commanding officer of the regiment, just once again we'll do a brief on what is the main role that the regiment does in Gibraltar, and also how does that fit into the British Army's wider structure?
I think there's this misconception generally that the regiment is just raised to support military efforts on ROC. That couldn't be further away from the truth. That is part of our role. You know, the regiment exists to deliver military effect on the ROC, but we are far more than that. And I like always to dispel the myth that is that we are just fixed geographically here. We're not. You only need to see the big portrait behind me where it shows you areas that we've been, and certainly since 1972 we've been involved in every key area of conflict and operation that the British Army has sent troops onto. And I think that's a very important message to push out there. The fact that the regiment is here, prepared and supportive of wider military interests away from the ROC.
And you balance that also with the ceremonial duties. So how do you find and balance that responsibility then of supporting UK, do what we do here, and also ceremonial duties?
Look, I think our plethora of responsibilities, both on ROC and off ROC, are wide and vast. And how do we balance it? I think it just comes down to good planning and great leadership of people around me, and commitment from the soldiers as well. I think the constant theme is that we've said is no day is the same, and it's exactly the same in terms of commitments. We are here to support the military interests of Gibraltar. We do commit our support for ceremonials as well, which is really important in terms of the demonstration of British sovereignty, the reassurance of security to the people of Gibraltar by the Ministry of Defence, and that's all important. I think it's also very important to see us as soldiers, doing exercises around the ROC, but also I think it's also important that, that we have that exposure in being able to tip our toe in the water in wide operations away from Gib. Exposures in North Africa, West Africa. We've been the leaders in sort of developing that defense engagement piece with Morocco, which is great. I think this year we've celebrated, I know that this year we've celebrated our 25th year anniversary of Exercise Jebel Sahara, which is the MOD's flagship exercise in developing those bonds with Morocco. The Gambia has been ongoing since 2006, where we again do something similar with the Gambian Armed Forces. More recently, we've been sort of supporting efforts in Latin America, South America with Chile. So, the RG's reach is far and wide considering the numbers we have. We're not your typical infantry battalion, but we certainly punch well above what is expected from us. And long may it remain, because it's those deployments, those commitments that keeps my soldiers engaged and retained and wanting to continue to serve.
That's what I was you've answered it, but that's what I was going to move on to now, because how do you keep that morale and motivation high, especially with the challenges of modern military life, but also for the regiment, the experience when the soldiers go and come back? What do they bring back? What do they teach the ones that haven't deployed in that moment? And so vastly important.
So there's loads of lessons, good lessons that you bring back to the battalion when you are deployed away. I think, to answer the first part of that question, how do we keep the morale and the commitment going? I think it has to come firstly to good leadership. I think that as a regiment, we have great people doing great things. We've got phenomenal leaders. I cannot take the credit myself. It is a whole force approach towards keeping the guys infused and committed. And the most junior soldier, private, can bring a lot to the party. And it's recognizing the efforts of those individuals, not only as the senior leadership team, but at the personal level, and recognizing that I think keeps people engaged, keeps soldiers wanting to work. But I'm very grateful, I must say, that I've got a very strong senior NCO, so senior non-commissioned officer and warrant officers mess, individuals who I'm very proud to say, many of them who are now serving in senior appointments, served with me at some point as their platoon commander, company 2IC, OC. So I'd like to think that I've had some contribution to them becoming the people they are, but they are great people, and like I said, doing great things. The officer corps as well, we're very committed to sort of broadening our experiences. So we are that experienced leader that can speak with conviction when talking to our soldiers. And it's absolutely phenomenal what we do and what we achieve. And of course I'm biased because I'm the commanding officer, and I'm very proud of the regiment I serve. But like I said, I'm proud because I've got really good people. And I think the regiment has a very strong future going forward. And my story is somewhat a little bit sad because I'm probably looking at retiring in the next year or two. But I'm also very confident that the people that will continue to push and propel the regiment forward are the right people to continue to promote this regiment's success. And I think that, like I said, this regiment has a very successful life going forward. So
what adds to that is the regiment's special relationship with the community. Mm-hmm. How do you see that relationship? It's always been special, but as a commanding officer, how do you see it?
I think, how do I see it? I think that the relationship is a strong relationship because we are, although I say we are very proud of bouncing out of Gibraltar and widening our experiences, we're also very committed to Gibraltar and working with the community and being out there, being seen, mm-hmm. being exposed, and it's a very proud thing to be a part of, and I'd like to think, and certainly we've seen far more interest over the last few years. We've seen an uptake in people wanting to once again rejoin the regiment. That demonstrates to me that we are an employer of choice going forward. Recruiting is my main effort. So more than ever, you'll probably see a lot of people out in uniform on the street trying to promote the regiment. Our social media feeds, our brand is fairly well known. Yeah. We do have a lot of people, both veterans and the youth with the cadet force now, that's been led by a former regular officer, Jury Williamson. You're seeing that interest sort of coming into the fold. So we are very well connected, and I think I dare say that we probably can be considered as being Gibraltar's children. And although we have a very diverse regiment made up of people that are not only from Gibraltar, but from expats that live up the coast and people who are now joining from the UK to come here, I think that the Royal Gibraltar Regiment offer must be a very strong offer to have that interest in people wanting to come to us.
I think the biggest one, and it's for lack of a better word, but the tool for the recruiting has always been parades. Mm. And what do you think that has in keeping that bond strong with the community?
I think parades are important, but I think they're important because it's easy to get an image of soldiers very quickly. But I think what we've now done is actually flipped it the other way. And what we're trying to promote more is us doing our day job, which is very much in this kit, rifle in hand, helmet on head, and doing a bit of training. And I think that's where social media is so important. Before, when social media wasn't a platform that we could exploit, because it was, we're only in an era of the last 15, 20 years really that we've pushed with social media, the only mechanisms that we had to be able to propel and demonstrate and reassure the people of Gibraltar what the RG, who the RG are and what we do was by means of parades. But I think that nowadays we're getting more exposure and being able to be seen in this uniform. I think ceremonials are always an element of pride because when we adorn our best uniforms and show off the regiment to pay our respects, whether it's a birthday to one of the monarchs or a gun salute, etc., it's a real privilege to be given that honor. But I think it's also because it gives the individuals that ability to show themselves off to the family as well, which I think is so important. And it's important because, like I said earlier on, fortunately for me, I've had the support of my family, and I think many of the soldiers, parades like that, what it does is it gives them a platform to be able to show themselves off to the families.
So what qualities then for those young soldiers and officers coming through today do you look for, or the individual, before they become a soldier and an officer?
Everyone is different. Everyone is different. I think that, certainly what we are looking for is individuals that have the right qualities that are reflective of the values and standards expected of the British Army. Individuals need to be fit, they need to be determined, hardworking, loyal, but they also need to have the unique character. And the characters is what makes it for the regiment. Yeah. I still remember a Lance Corporal O'Hara, who was one of the main protagonists in the smoking shed, sort of keeping morale high. We also look for someone who has that ability to, have a joke and a giggle and not take life too seriously, because there are moments where they're going to be expected to take life very seriously. And those moments where we have that lull in the battle, like we say, it's always welcomed having those individuals that have something to them.
I agree with that. That was always one of the main motivators, and I still even take it now. Life can be so dull, so gloomy, so negative, and you just need to remind people you can have a laugh, you can have a good time.
Absolutely.
It's just another day, it's a bad day, it's a bad dip, don't worry, we'll have a laugh, we carry on.
Absolutely.
I think it's really, really important. So for the young Gibraltarian today, what would why would they consider regiment as an appealing career path?
I think the regiment offers a lot to the youth, and whether that's Gibraltarians or if it's people from further afield that are considering a career in the regiment, what the regiment offers you is opportunities to broaden your educational profile. I get more qualifications at GCSE, A-level, or even degree. If you invest the time. I think the fact, more specifically to Gibraltarians, that they are awarded a housing bursary by the government of Gibraltar, that if they haven't gone to study, essentially they'll give them that money that has been put to aside for them to go and get higher education in university. They give them that value to be able to put as a down payment on a property, £30,000. That's another attractive element about joining the regiment. The variety that you get, the brotherhood and sisterhood, because now females can join the infantry, and we've only just recently welcomed our first female infanteers in the regulars. We've got one in the reserves, but we've just recently received the first one in the regulars. It offers you a job which has a lot of variety. Yes, we're infanteers, but one day you can be doing subterranean training, because our niche area of expertise is being the SMEs for defense in subterranean warfare. You could be doing that, and then the next minute you're being asked to go and man the guns and support Royal Naval Gibraltar Squadron around the bay, and you're cutting around in a vessel, and the next minute you may be upskilling yourself and wanting to go and become an explosive ordnance operator in joining the EOD detachment, or you want to be a chef. So there's different areas that the regiment are willing to employ people into. You probably don't get that variety in any other job. I think the regiment offers you that variety, that exposure to be able to go and do exercises, operations away from Gibraltar, whether that's South America, whether it's West Africa, whether it's North Africa, whether it's going on operations to Eastern Europe, in Estonia. We are an employer of choice. We have to be, because these opportunities do not get offered anywhere else. We have a pension plan as well. So there is a lot that the regiment offers. And if anyone has, and this is my plea really, if anyone has any thoughts or has ever had an inclination, wanting to know a bit more about what the regiment can offer, then certainly I think that come to one of our insight weekends or 9-day camps, or join the reserves, so at least you can be part of it in some capacity, because we also have a reserve company which is made up of people that work in the private sector, but on the weekends and on a couple of evenings during the week, they have the ability to adorn a uniform and do some training. we have those offers out there. So there's plenty that this regiment offers. From me, just very quickly, I want to take this opportunity to wish my family a very Merry Christmas. I want to also use the opportunity to thank my parents, firstly, Freddie and Michelle. And then I also want to give a special mention, if possible, to my wife, Natalia, who has been supportive of my career.
Yeah, of course.
And my kids, Sophie, Jack, and Alexia. I think family is very important, and certainly very important for me. And I am partly the person I am today thanks to the efforts of my family. So to all my family and my brothers as well, thank you for your support. Thank you for your continued support, and Merry Christmas to everyone.
Thank you for everyone for watching. We'll see you in the next one. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year.